Awesome. Great. And now I will hand the meeting over to our chair, Chair Boatwright.
Hello, everyone. Just give me one second. Hello, good afternoon. I am calling this public meeting to order at 4:35 p.m. in accordance with the Building Emissions Reduction and Disclosure Ordinance regulations adopted pursuant to the Building Emissions Reduction and Disclosure Ordinance, Boston City Code Ordinances, Section 7-2.2. The BERDO Review Board will hold a virtual public meeting at 4:30 p.m. on September 29th to review the following topics in regards to the reduction of greenhouse gases from building energy production and consumption so as to promote the public health and welfare of Boston residents. In accordance with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, we are conducting this public meeting online. To ensure public access to the deliberations of the BERDO Review Board, the public may access this call through telephone and video conferencing. For the record, I am Jessica Boatwright, Chair of the Board. I will now conduct a roll call of board members. Board members, please say your name in the order that they appear on the slide. Jessica Boatwright.
Stephen Ellis.
Lori Ferris.
Gail Lattimore.
Reginald Stovall.
And staff will now introduce them.
Hannah Payne, Director of Carbon Neutrality in the Environment Department.
Diana Vasquez, BERDO Review Board Manager in the Environment Department.
Hi, everyone. Claudia Diaz Martinez, Policy and Equity Advisor, Environment Department.
Ziggy Chin, BERDO Review Board Assistant in the Environment Department.
Great. Here is the agenda for today's meeting. We'll start by approving them. We're kind of doing some things in opposite order today because we have a lot of special guests. So we're going to approve the minutes from the September 8th meeting. Then we'll hear administrative updates. And after we will hear a presentation from the fund finalists. We will adjourn the meeting after our last presentation. So the first order of business is to approve the previous meeting's minutes for September 8th. Are there any questions regarding the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve from Member Lattimore.
Second.
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 All right. On the motion to approve the minutes, board members may vote in favor, oppose, or abstain. And if you were not in attendance, you should abstain. So those in favor of approving the meeting minutes, say aye or use a raised hand.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Those opposed? Any abstentions? All right, the ayes have it. So the minutes have been approved, and I will hand it over to Ziggy for the administrative update.
Thank you, Chair. First, another reminder about BERDO Fest. It's happening on October 23rd. Again, this is just an event that will connect building owners with different experts in decarbonization. It's going to take place from 12 to 6 p.m. at Artists for Humanity in South Boston, and the registration link is live and can be found at boston.gov/BERDO-fest. Also, I just wanted to give a quick look at our timeline. At the next meeting, which is going to be Tuesday, October 14th, we have 3 building portfolios scheduled. One is a Pathway 2 hearing, and the other 2 are Pathway 1 applications. And also on October 14th will be the final vote on the fund awards. And then on October 22nd, the city is going to provide an update on adopted BERDO regulations, as well as an update on the Building Decarbonization Advisor Program, or BDAP, which the review board allocated $500,000 from the fund last year to go towards that program. And then lastly, that the next review board meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, October 14th. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So we are now going to move on to presentations from the fund finalists who were selected at the last meeting. Thank you to all of our finalists for joining us today. I will pass it over to Diana to review the process.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And thank you everyone for joining today. So I'll just do a very quick table setting and then we can move on to the presentations of our actual applicants. But just a quick overview of the application cycle this year. In total, we received 22 applications. We worked with our legal and grants team to help make sure that all of the projects met the eligibility requirements for the project or for the fund. And we then took those eligible projects and shared them with the board. The board then was able to individually assess those applications. And on September 8th, so the last review board meeting, the review board voted on the 6 finalists that are present today to present. This is just a slide for folks as a reference slide, but these are the evaluation criteria that the board uses when reading through the applications. I won't go through it today, but this is just a reference slide. In terms of the procedure for today, we are planning 20 minutes per application or per presentation. So 10 minutes for the applicant to present on their project proposals, and then about 10 minutes for your review board to ask questions. Ziggy and I are going to be keeping time. We'll just do a quick 1 minute warning whenever we reach 9 minutes for the presentation or 9 minutes in the Q&A. We're hoping this will help sort of keep our agenda moving forward out of respect for everyone's time. I know some of the applicants have some hard stops tonight, so hoping we can try to keep folks on schedule. Next steps after today, we will request each board member's recommended funding decision via email. So Ziggy and I will email each of you individually, and then we'll take that information, coalesce it, and present it to the board at our following hearing on October 14th. And just to give a review of what the order will be today, we have Moorville House Apartments first, followed by Roxbury Tenants of Harvard, then Alston Brighton Community Development Corporation, then Boston Medical Center Health System, followed by Urban Edge Housing Corporation, and then lastly, but not least, Boys and Girls Club of Dorchester. And I think that's it from me, and then I'll pass it over maybe to you, Chair, if you want to intro the applicant.
Sure. So I will I'll hand it over to Moorville House Apartments. Thank you to Diana and Ziggy for helping to make sure we stay on time today. We are excited to hear from everyone and want to also make sure everyone gets a fair and treatment in terms of time. So so the floor is yours, Moorville House team. We're excited to hear from you.
Hi, thanks everybody. My name is Chris Rayner. I am a senior property manager at Maloney Properties, and we are the managing agent for Moorville House Apartments and the Episcopal City Mission for this site. So just real briefly, because I'm going to get into some of those details shortly, Moorville House is affordable housing site subsidized by state and federal monies, and we are located in the Symphony Hall area of the Fenway neighborhood. So one thing I wanted to talk about a little bit before jumping right into who Moorville House is and who we serve is briefly talk about the Episcopal City Mission and their goals as an organization. But before I get there, I just want to acknowledge that we are partnered with this project with Resonant Energy and the Sparkhawk Group. And my colleague, Josh Kreisberg, is here from Resonant Energy, and he's going to help me out with some of the more technical aspects of this presentation. Okay. And is there, okay, thank you. So briefly, without going into the 150 plus year history of the organization, so it's worth noting that the Episcopal City Mission was founded in 1844. It's doing direct service to Boston's poor. So there were a couple parishioners that were serving food out of the basement of their facilities to help the Boston communities. Now, let's fast forward up to the 1960s and 70s, where they took a major shift from that direct service to tackling the root causes of economic injustice. And it was around those 1970s where Fair Housing Acts and other civil rights initiatives were really taking hold, where Episcopal City Mission constructed Moorville House with the intention to rehabilitate, develop, and create more affordable housing in the city of Boston. Okay. And so today, their policy is even expanded a little bit. So they are dedicated to shrinking the racial wealth gap. They partner with BIPOC-led movements and solidarity economies to build sustainable models, redistribute resources of power, and really lay the groundwork for reparations and lasting solidarity in our communities. Next slide, please. Okay. So Moorville House, who are we? So like I said before, this is a 175 unit high rise in the Fenway. It is 100% affordable, and it is dedicated to serving the elderly and disabled communities. Since its inception, and continuing today, we support a very diverse community that is representative not only the Fenway neighborhood itself, but at Boston at large. Some things that really kind of set us apart and make us great, in our opinion, is that we've had long-term on-site staff, on-site resident services, professionals, and we have a really strong capital needs plan that places emphasis on building health, resident health, and just general efficiency and support to our climate change goals. I'm going to be a little biased here, but Episcopal City Mission has had a long-standing trusted relationship with a leading managing agent company in affordable housing. And Maloney Properties has been partnered with ECM for since the early 1980s. And we're still going strong in this partnership. Next slide, please. So Josh, this is where I'm going to ask you to jump in and crunch some of these numbers for us and help them make sense for everybody.
Yeah, happy to do so. Hi, everyone. I'm Josh Kreisberg. I'm a business development manager at Resonant Energy that's working on this project with Chris and with ECM. So you can see a rendering of the solar array here. It's a 47 or just under 48 kilowatt system. And you can see the total lifetime savings to the developer on the screen there. And it's worth noting that this system, while it's covering just under 7% of the common area electricity used at the building. And the reason for that, you can see based on this rendering, that there is space for more solar panels. However, this specific part of the city is in what's called an area network, meaning that it's a very old part of the electricity grid, and it's very challenging to build solar in these areas. And so because of that, we've, through our coordination with Eversource, we've limited the size of the array to what you see here, just this under 50 kilowatt system, and we'll use specialized equipment called a Basler that essentially prevents any electricity from being exported back into the grid. Again, because it is that older grid system, it won't be able to, it can't handle any sort of bidirectional flow or extra electricity coming out of the array. So because of those constraints, those are some of the things that we were trying to build around and trying to factor into our system here. It's part of the reason that there really is not very much solar that is developed in this part of the city. And this project in particular is an excellent opportunity to kind of show what can be done and how solar can still be an answer for many buildings in this area when the right types of projects are built. And overall, you can see we have the the alternative compliance payments at the bottom of the screen there estimated for this this property. And without being able to put the solar on, that will put a significant strain on the financial well-being of the building and its ability to serve the residents overall. So I think I'll leave it there.
Slide. So Josh, I could talk a little bit about this piece. So the total project cost for us is $242,759. Now we've already secured a federal tax credit for half of that. So we got it for $121,000 and $379,000. It's just leaving us with the other 50% of the cost. Now, the amount that we're requesting from the fund is just a few thousand more than the remaining cost of the project itself. And that's really just to cover the overhead, the small amount of time that the Episcopal City Mission and Maloney staff will need to manage the project. Okay. Now, before we jump back into another technical slide here, let's talk about the recipients of these efforts, the tenants here. So we have currently about 230 residents in the building. Now, this project, all the energy from the system is going to be used to offset the common areas electricity in the building. And per the bonus tax credit, we are required to distribute portion of that energy output to tenants. And so Episcopal City Mission is going to be contributing extra monies into the building's operating reserve to accommodate for this. So far, as this project has been in development and even in conversations, we've kept our very active resident council abreast of these goals here. And we've had some meetings since then to talk about kind of as this has grown, the scope has grown and finalized. It's been a very supportive group. They're very excited that we are prioritizing system health, which will lead to just better air quality and efficiencies in the building going forward. On top of that, in terms of the tenant participation, once we complete the project, we're going to have a full building meeting with all the residents, where Episcopal City Mission and resident, as well as Maloney, will be doing educational presentations to them about, the decarbonization improvements, and answer any other questions that they may have that we didn't maybe field during the process. Okay, next slide, please. So contracting, as we know, is very important for these projects. So what I would like to focus on is Moorville House itself, who since 2015 has spent 30% of their annual expenditures on woman-owned and minority-owned businesses. And that is, it's kind of an unofficial baseline that we look to grow on going forward as well. And we make every effort to provide opportunities for women and minority-owned businesses to have access to bid on projects related to the building. Okay, next slide. I'm going to keep this one. I'm going to keep this one really short. So we only have a handful of seconds left. But this complementary scope that we're offering is a ERV, air return ventilation system that will pair with heat pumps, replacing AC in-wall units in all of the units of the building. Between these two things, efficiency will be greater, clean air will also be greater as well. Okay. And as Josh already mentioned, we have got our low-income bonus tax credit awarded already, and the interconnection service agreement received from Eversource. This project, we've already had smaller ceiling projects going on, window sealing and rehabilitation, but this project in particular, the solar, is really going to be kicking off in early 2026. And I'd be remiss to say thank you to the City of Boston and the BERDO board. And special thanks to Urban Edge for letting us move up in the queue here. Really appreciate it. And we're open for questions.
Thank you so much. Fellow members of the board, I do just want to, well, first, thank the team both for your presentation and for the written response to a number of questions that you sent over. Do just want to make sure that fellow members of the board have seen that there were a number of questions that the team answered leading up to today's conversation. So rather than do roll call, which is practice in our committee for questions, I'm just going to ask for either a show of hands or I guess and unmute if you're on the phone from board members, just so we can really focus on the most critical questions and keep the agenda moving. Does anyone have a question? Board Member Lattimore.
Yes, sorry to be off screen, and thank you for the presentation. It's very helpful. And I did review the responses, so I appreciate the responses to the questions as well. Just want to make sure I understood. I did read the responses, but wanted to make sure I understood the kind of complementary piece that you talked about with the ERV. Is not subject to the funding that you're asking for, correct? Is it just the solar that you're asking, and the ERV will be funded via lien? Is that my understanding?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, that's what I thought. Thank you for that. No other
Yes.
questions.
Thank you.
Great. And I have, this may be a question, maybe a comment. I understand that there have been some shifting things with federal credits available. But and of course also understand the need to cover overhead costs. But I think for us to consider the full amount in good faith, we really need a budget to reflect the need for the full 125 award. So I guess I would request subsequent to this meeting that it be updated to really show that, because right now
Sure.
there's a verbal explanation, but I think we need it in the numbers as well.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, we can definitely provide that. And I will say, just in reference to the changes at the federal policy level, right now we're working towards reaching, sort of full compliance with the foreign entity of concern provisions that will prohibit using materials from countries like China that go into effect at the beginning of next year. And so we do typically factor in a little bit of room for if there are things like cost increases due to a run on materials or things like that, are just some of the things that can be baked in there. So we'll absolutely provide a more up-to-date budget that sort of speaks to exactly what each of those, that extra money would be going towards.
I think we have time for one more question if we have one. Seeing none, I'm gonna thank you so much for your presentation and hand it back to Diana to move us into the next presentation.
Great.
Thanks all.
Thank you, Chair. Y'all did great. We had actually some spare minutes. So moving on, we have our next applicant, Roxbury Tenants of Harvard. And
Oh, go ahead.
go ahead. I just want one note. Ziggy is the one who's in control of the slides. So if you just want to give her a verbal, next slide,
Okay.
she's happy to do that.
Perfect. So welcome everybody. My name is Nancy Weinstein. I'm the Director of Operations through Trinity Management, but on the Roxbury Tenants of Harvard property. Our property is one of the largest throughout Boston, one of the oldest grassroots tenants organizations that was acquired from Harvard back in around 1977 is when the property was built. We have a very diverse community of providing affordable housing to low and moderate income families. Oh, sorry, next slide. Sorry. Sorry. So we have a very diverse community to low and moderate families, individuals for over 50 years, again, starting in 1977. We currently have 1,114 apartments, and that is across houses, high-rise buildings, townhomes, and multifamily homes that serve their tenants. A lot of these tenants have been here for many, many years. They consider this their home. They're very, very passionate about keeping the community growing, keeping it up to date, keeping with, aligned with what's happening. We are So within the entire community of Roxbury Tenants of Harvard, which goes over multiple blocks, Fenwood, Francis, up to Huntington Avenue and Brigham Circle, one of the pieces is what we call Mission Park. So Mission Park independently has 775 apartments, again, currently located in Mission Hill. The Mission Park is composed of 1,500 low to moderate income residents, most averaging under 25,000 per year. Although we are not an elderly community, a lot of our residents moved here back in the late 70s, early 80s when it was built, and have been here ever since. Next slide. So Mission Park itself is made up of 4 high-rise buildings. Down at the bottom of the screen, we have the Duggan and the Neville, which are sister buildings to each other, 13 stories each. The Flynn, which is our lower, which is only 8 stories. And the townhouses that surround those buildings, there's 147 townhouses that surround. Up at the top is our Levinson, which is the majority of the building that you can see as you're driving down Huntington Avenue. This is where our project is residing, at the roof of this Levinson building. It is a 27-story, heated by a central natural gas boiler, 27 stories up, which is beautiful on flyover day of Fenway Park. Next slide. So our project, obviously committing to decarbonization. We have been working throughout this entire year with Greener U, Elevated Design, Building Solution, Evolution. We've completed a deep energy retrofit, and it's composed of multiple pieces of the puzzle. The one that we're here today to try to, be part of, motivate the part by BERDO's, have, keeping our energy, keeping in the right direction to fulfill, the future equations of being net zero. So our deep energy retrofit has assisted in identifying and analyzing the energy emissions. We've provided opportunities to plan for decarbonization strategies and laid the groundwork for both short-term, medium, and long-term pathways. We've been working diligently over laying out an entire plan, short-term items and long-term. So this is one of our, shorter terms that we think we can get done fairly quickly. So I'm going to turn it over to Mark, who's going to go through the details of our project that, again, are on top of that high-rise building, the Levinson building. Mark?
Yep. Next slide, please. Hi, my name's Mark Scow, and I'm an engineer. I'm the owner of Elevated Design, a firm focused almost exclusively on decarbonization, electrification, and reducing our impact on the earth. So next slide, please. So the advantage of this project are that it's going to lower the boiler combustion. So we're going to have less direct combustion of natural gas on site, which obviously results in lower CO2 emissions. And there's also going to be an added benefit, improved tenant and health comfort, which we talk about in the next slide. And that is that we have inadequate heat now. So we don't know what happened, but at some point, about 15 years ago, a new boiler plant was put in, and it was a little undersized. So when they get to the absolute coldest days of the year, they're not able to provide enough heat to the entire campus. It's one boiler plant that heats all of those buildings that you saw. And so as a result, they have to turn off the fresh air supply to that high-rise tower when it's at the coldest possible temperatures. They still do have exhaust, so it's not like the fresh air goes down entirely, but what results in that is we get draftiness. The fresh air is sucked in through individual cracks at each window and tenant, and so it's a less comfortable experience, and also still just not very efficient. So next slide, please. We have come up with a solution that will decrease carbon burning on site and also increase the total capacity of the boiler plant. So you can see this photo on the left, which you see all the exhaust fans poking up there. Not a very zoomed in photo, but you can still see those exhaust fans. And I wish it was a photo that we had from the winter time, because you would see snow on the roof and you'd see all, complete melting all around these exhaust fans. They are throwing away 70 to 75 degree air every single hour of the year. That is all the toilet and kitchen exhaust, general exhaust for this building. And the photo on the right is our proposed solution for this, and that is to recover that heat and deliver it to the fresh air intake. So that big louver that you see right in the middle is the fresh air intake. And so that's right, just a few feet away from where we're throwing away all this heat. We are bringing in fresh air. And so but the problem is in a new building, it's very easy to make those work, but in a retrofit application, it's very difficult. So we have a proposed process for recovering that heat from the exhaust and move it in there, which increases the total capacity, heating capacity of the building, and decreases combustion. So next slide. So this is a simple diagram of the current scenario. And so that you have a boiler room down in the basement, and it is just bringing warm water up and treating that fresh air. The next slide. We're still going to have that system in place as a redundant backup. You can see in the gray lines. But what we're going to do is add these coils throughout so that we're able to capture that heat. And this has been done for a long time. It's called a runaround loop. But they're not very efficient and they're very expensive. But with the cost of BERDO penalties going up, we have a increased capacity, the increased incentive. And with the addition of a water heat pump, that allows us to boost the temperatures. So this actually looks an awful lot like a geothermal system. Rather than going to the ground to get heat out of the ground, we're just taking the heat right from the top of the high rise. We're grabbing that heat just before it gets exhausted to the atmosphere. Next slide. I think I'm almost down to my 1 minute margin, and we are back to Nancy. So you got just over a minute, Nancy, to close it out. Oh, I'm sorry. This one is mine. So anyways, this supports part of our zero overtime strategy. We really just wanted to focus on the fact that we're not just making a boiler system more efficient. Even when the boilers are all turned off, this system will still be part of the future energy. We don't know all the paths that we're going to take over the next 20, 25 years, but we know this system will be part of the final solution. Okay, next slide. Oh, I lost track of my slides. I'm so sorry. Anyway, so we have some economics here. This can be more of like an appendix given that we're down to the last minute here. But the project has grown in scope. We initially were very cautious and, we're going to do a more limited project, and we've proposed to expand the project. So we're still asking for the same grant from BERDO, but we are proposing to increase the scope and increase the total savings as a result. Next slide. Are we finally back to Nancy?
Yeah.
Here we go. Back to Nancy.
So just very, very quickly, I know we're down to time, but just wanted you guys to know that we have, we take pride in making sure that the tenant participation in making sure that, we're moving in the right direction for energy or for any other green initiatives. So, RTH takes it very seriously. We promote this to the community. 100% of our resident board meetings are to review all of our capital plans, staff, property managers' priorities, to make sure, we always do a capital needs assessment to make sure that we're moving in the right direction. Our board is made up of 100% diversified residents. So, we do get a good, opinion from all sorts of avenues. For the Levinson heat recovery project, it'll impact is to be 100% positive. And since workplace takes from the roof and the boiler rooms, and it's not in the apartments. So it's, it's definitely, we're trying to make sure that the tenants understand this is all for the good. And the last slide, if we can just move to the last one. Mission Park as a whole, we are, because we are a HUD property, we are mandated for minority and women-owned business. So almost 25 to 30% of our, not even just our capital operations across the board, all procurement is through women and minorities. So we continue to encourage that, as well as are mandated by HUD to make sure that we're meeting our expectations. So, minute warning. So, with that being said, I, want to thank you guys for taking the time and just, taking us under consideration, but we're moving forward to try to make the community a better place.
Great. Thank you so much for the presentation. Really helpful to see everything. Do any board members have questions? Board member Ellis.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and also thank you to Nancy and Mark for your presentation today. Forgive me, I'm just hoping if you can just re-explain a little bit, just to make sure that I'm capturing the runaround loop you mentioned was an extremely inefficient process. And knowing that we're trying to move forward with this, I just wanted to make sure that I'm understanding a little bit more about that. So can you talk a little bit about that one more time, just so I can capture it?
Yeah, so if I don't know if we want to back up 2 slides. Back up to that diagram. Yes, that one. So in a traditional way that's been done in the past is that you would just have copper coils. And so you're just moving some of the heat. You're able to move about 50% of the heat from the kitchen exhaust over to the makeup air system. And we really wanted to achieve better than 50%. And so by using this water-to-water heat pump, it works much more like a geothermal system. And we're able to get 65% of the heat on the coldest day of the year. But the real magic to the system is it's now independent of outdoor air temperatures. So we're able to achieve the same energy recovery as long as there's any heating need whatsoever. And that includes domestic hot water down in the basement. So we're able to achieve, I don't have that number in handy, but it's probably approaching 100% compared to what you would expect with like a traditional system. So it's much more analogous to a geothermal system in that you have this like external source of energy instead of the ground. It's these exhaust stacks. So we're like really, really pleased and excited with how this has come out. And as you'll see in the numbers, if you take a look at those, we move forward with a further design. We spent a lot of time and effort developing this, and it has come out significantly better than we had hoped when we submitted the presentation. We were quite conservative at the initial submission.
Thank you, Mark. And just to close out the loop here, because I heard the analogy with the geothermal, so storage is not a huge consideration here, but this sort of system ignoring the storage of geothermal is what you're sort of talking
Correct. Yeah,
about.
geothermal does have that advantage of storage. This one doesn't have storage. It's use it or lose it. If it's if it's a warm afternoon and no one's taking any showers right then that energy would just be lost and it would be gone. But anytime there's a domestic hot water load or a heating load, this system would be able to support that. And it's unlike a traditional makeup air unit or energy recovery unit, which is always just getting a percentage of the difference between outdoor and indoor air. This one is able to get that same percentage regardless of the outdoor air temperature.
Thank you, Mark. I'll turn it back over to you, Chair.
You, board member Lattimore.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. Appreciate it. I did want to understand when you said that you expanded, it sounded like you're expanding the amount of either work or budget. And so just wondered what the implications of, if you could just describe what that expansion, I was trying to make sure I understood what you meant when you
Yeah,
said
so the building has
budget, how that relates
36.
to what you're requesting as well.
Yep. So the request has not changed. We were still requesting the $150,000, which our approach on this was a little bit more, like a utility incentive where we were looking for a small cost share. And so the building has 36,000 CFM of exhaust air and fresh air that is occurring all the time. And initially we thought, well, maybe we'll only be able to access half of that air, and maybe we'll get, a certain percentage of that air we'll get the energy out of. And with the system, as the math came out, we were able to show the economics were really doing quite well. So we were able to continue to drive the system to be more advantageous and recover more energy.
So does that mean that the cost, your total budget is higher than and
Correct. If we could go back
how are
onto
you
that
funding?
table.
How are you funding the balance of a bigger budget? That's kind of what I'm trying to understand.
Yeah,
I know
understood. So because the
more.
simple payback has improved so dramatically, you see in the middle there, we've gone from 26 years to 9 years. That's how I believe the site has believes that they're able to fund this, is basically with the cost savings.
Hmm. Okay, I have no other questions.
Are there any other questions? Great. Thank you so much. This was really helpful. Thanks for your presentation and your answers. Can I just ask a question of staff, which is just for the board's knowledge? There have been two presentations now where the budget, obviously, because this is what happens as we learn more about projects, the budget has shifted a small amount. Plus, we know about changes in federal programs. Can you clarify what our ability is to incorporate information, since the submission date into how we evaluate proposals as it pertains to budget and funding needed?
Yes. So board members, I guess for context, when awards are decided and the review board votes on awardees, we have to draft up a grant agreement, essentially a contract with the city and the awardee, sort of outlining the agreement of giving this grant, what are the stipulations, what are the conditions. We ask for updated and accurate budgets, as accurate as possible timelines, knowing that these timelines can shift. And that can include if, for example, the review board votes to award less than an amount that was requested. So, we ask the applicant if that's acceptable, if they're still interested, and then we update that budget to match that request, that amount as well. So with all of that being said, I think it's totally acceptable for review board members to, use the latest information, and moving forward, we just ask for updated budgets to match that award. Does that make sense?
That makes sense to everybody else? Yes, board member Lattimore.
I'm not sure if I'm clear. Thank you, Diana, but I'm not sure if I'm clear. Does that mean that we get to see updated budgets before we decide, or we have to decide without seeing updated budgets?
That's a good question. We haven't requested updated budgets before deciding in the past, but if the review board wanted to request that, I think we could certainly make that request.
I am interested in that. I don't know how others feel.
I kind of agree with that myself because of the way our economy is going right now. We need to know what we're doing before we do it. So it does make sense.
Yeah, I think if it seems there is agreement, we do ask for updated budget anyways if we make a grant agreement. So it seems like we're just kind of moving that step earlier in the process. I think we can coordinate with applicants if there's like a change in numbers. Could you just we have a budget template that we include in the application. We could just say, could you give us updated numbers on those line items?
I think that, yeah, to the extent that there's a change, if we could at least look before before we take our vote at the next meeting, that would be great.
I think that we can do that. We can coordinate.
Thank you. Thank you. So why don't we move on to the next presentation, which is from Alston Brighton CDC. So I will hand it over to you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Caitlin Robillard. I'm the Director of Real Estate Development at Alston Brighton CDC. Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to speak to you about the Hano Homes Deep Energy Retrofit in Alston. And I want to note that I'm joined this evening by my colleague Mara Tu, who's a project manager on the real estate team. So she and I will both be able to answer questions afterwards. Next slide. Before I get into Hano Homes, just wanted to give a little background on the CDC. So we have set a goal to decarbonize our entire portfolio by 2040, partly because we really need to do it, be ambitious and show the urgency here. We're always wanting to do our part, of course, to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, but a real central part of this is the health and comfort of our residents. We feel like offering pressure ventilation, thermal comfort, central AC, those are big motivators for us. We also are committed to normalizing deep energy retrofits and show it's not some fad and it's not impossible. It's a very viable path forward and really tee up the affordable housing industry as a leader in this space. The how is always trickier, of course, but a few things turned the tide for us here. One of which is BERDO. We really leaned into it. It's so great to have an ordinance that has teeth behind it so that we could show leadership that, we were going to be facing real fines if we didn't make upgrades. Also, the data that we're able to get from our sustainability consultants is so key, from their ashrays and their decarb audits, to really help us understand what the energy usage reduction will be, what the future utility costs are projected at, and how we will maintain borough compliance going forward. And of course, I think the green funding that's out there has been an absolute game changer. Kind of started, I'd say, with climate ready housing money, Department of Energy Resources, and this grant as well. We all know that DERs cost more than rehabs, standard rehab, so more money was really needed in this space. Next slide, please. So here is Hano Homes, real glamour shot, top right there. It's 20 units, 10 townhomes, 2 and 3 bedroom units. This was built in the late 19th century, but lucky for us, anything that was historically significant and beautiful has long ago been removed or covered up. So we didn't have any historic constraints here. Before the work, it was all gas for heat, domestic hot water. And 15 out of the 20 units are deed restricted income restricted to folks at 60% of AMI or below, and that's in perpetuity. And then bottom right, I have our project goals, which I won't read to you because we're going to have slides that get into each of those. But before I do, also want to explain the project timeline here. So we had 2 big pieces of this work, one of which was the building systems, the exterior envelope, and the interior work. We did that over the course of 10 months from July 24 through the end of May of this year. That's done, but the next big critical piece is getting the solar on, and that's projected to be done by around February of 2026. All right, next slide, please. So first goal, electrify, increase energy efficiency. I think arguably one of the most important pieces when you electrify is having a really well insulated envelope. So the design team and the contractors really knew what they were doing here. They demoed down to the original wood sheathing on this building and have this very thoughtful 7 layers of what our architects call a brand new winter coat that went around the property. Including wood fiber, which is a carbon storing material, which was incredible to use on this. Of course, part of this was heat pumps for heating, cooling, domestic hot water, adding in ERBs for fresh air, and to help offset the increased cost from switching to all electric, getting rooftop solar panels on. Sustainable comfort projected for us an energy use reduction of over 80% and an emissions reduction of 74%. And now we're only like 4 months since we've had all electric systems throughout. Early data, though, is showing that we really definitely are hitting these energy reduction targets. But after a full year, 2 years, we'll really be able to provide more of that data. Next slide, please. Our second goal was to keep our residents front of mind for all of this, really minimize the disruption to their lives. Looking at 20 households, about 50 individuals who live here, and maximizing the benefits to them when they return to their homes. A 10-month occupied rehab is, of course, going to not be pleasant for everybody, but we tried our best to minimize that. We had a great relocation team. We actually had the benefit of a couple vacancies opened up before we started. So rather than moving folks temporarily off-site, they got to just move into what we considered hotel units right on site, just a couple doors down from where they were living. And they got this interior work down to such a science that it was just 2 weeks that folks were out of their units at a time. And of course, with the relocation consultant, the packing and the moving and the storage and furnishing the hotel units, that was all taken care of. Benefits to our residents. All of the utilities here are owner paid, so there's no cost burden on going all electric for our tenants. This property is actually right next to the Mass Pike and one of the commuter rail stops. So air pollution and noise pollution were real factors that we were able to address through this project. And then, of course, the thermal comfort. So the residents now have control over the heating and cooling of their units. These ERVs giving them fresh air, filter out pollutants from the air, providing dehumidification and humidity recovery as needed. For tenant engagement, we of course met with our tenants prior to the work being started. They had one-on-one meetings with each household to understand their needs during the relocation process. And afterwards, we learned that in educating them on how to use the systems was really key. It wasn't as intuitive as we had hoped. So we offered one-on-one meetings with each household to show them exactly how to use the thermostat. So they all now have these welcome home packets with a lot of details and a quick reference guide on how to use these. And this is something that we're committed to revisiting with the tenants once a year, just to make sure that folks are using all the systems properly. We also, for solar, even though it's not up yet, we host monthly coffee chats at our community center, and the September one was focused on solar. So folks throughout of our portfolio were invited, but we made a concerted effort to really invite and encourage folks from Hino Homes to come, since solar will be going up there soon. Next slide, please. Third and final goal here is really we wanted to advance decarbonization and affordable housing. Like I said, we hired Haycon as our general contractor. This was based on many factors, but also because of their proven track record in engaging a diverse workforce. This project provided training opportunities for the local workforce, specializing in sustainable development, building electrification, that we hope can prepare all these Boston workers for similar future green building retrofits. And even the use of wood fiber insulation was a new material for all these folks to use, but luckily the learning curve was not very steep. It was, they all reported it was really easy to work with. As far as local hiring and MWBE hiring, we met or exceeded all of the goals that we had set out beforehand. So total construction work hours, 48% were by Boston residents, 97% by people of color, and 10% by women. Over 44% of the construction contract was handled via MWBE subcontractors, which represents over $1.9 million in contracts. And lastly, industry sharing is something that we think is so important to be able to inspire others and show them how viable this pathway is for folks. This is a really common building typology, Hano Homes. It's seen across the city of Boston and the Commonwealth. So in that spirit, we hosted 4 on-site look and learn events. These were attended by lenders, city employees, quasi-public, staff from other CDCs, and even some folks from the BERDO team. And we have our next and final tour will be with Nessie on October 24th. Also, we presented at presented at conferences, and there are some case studies in the works as well. Next slide. Wanted to share our budget, and we can provide, like you were saying before, the complete updated budget. But we actually came in, this is amazing, $140,000 under costs. So you'll see that what was really hard for us is when the HER money was clawed back, or it's just stalled completely. So we had assumed we would be getting $400,000 from this source through our conversations with DOER. That is no longer looking to be the case. So that's when we had a hole that we needed to fill, and really fast. Our soft costs came in under budget by about $140,000. So that knocked our gap down to $260,000. So our request to EEIF would provide us with the bulk of that, $250,000, and the remaining $10,000 gap we are covering by deferring our fee. So if we weren't to get this grant, what we would do is we would defer all of our fee and much of our overhead. So we're hopeful though that you'll see what a great project this is. The $250,000 would be really greatly appreciated, make us fully funded fill the gap, and we'd be able to pay ourselves for the work. Thank you very much.
You for the presentation. Members of the board, if you have a question, please raise your hand or unmute.
I'm just making sure
All
I
right.
understand.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Mhm.
So
No.
the funding that was clawed back was the federal money that happened when our new president took. Okay, all right. Thank you.
Correct. Yep. Yes.
Thank you.
Great. All right. Board Member Lattimore.
Thank you. I appreciate the presentation. It was very thorough. Thank you. And just to follow up on Board Member Stovall's question, was that solar for all money that you were planning on getting, or was that a different source? I can't recall from the application.
Different source. Her home electrification rebate
Oh,
money,
right,
the
right,
Inflation Reduction
okay.
Act.
Okay. I appreciate the clarity that you provided on the budget and otherwise, so thank you.
Sure.
No other questions.
Thank you. I did not see additional questions. So thank you for the thorough presentation and for your time. And I think we can move on to the next applicant. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. I'm going to hand it over to the Boston Medical Center team.
Hey, thank you so much. And it's great to be here. It's really exciting. I'm going to introduce myself and then I'll tell you about our project, although I know you've read about it already. So my name is Anna Goldman. I'm a primary care physician at Boston Medical Center. I'm also the medical director of sustainability there. And in that role, I see patients 2 days a week. And then the other part of the time, I do programs that are related to environmental justice, like clean power prescription and others, and then also work on operational sustainability at the hospital. For example, we have a large project to reduce plastic waste coming out of the medical system right now. So we sort of work on two fronts there. And so next slide, please. I'm just going to do a brief overview of BMC for those of you who I think most people know BMC, but some interesting history is that we were the first city hospital in the U.S. Boston's always been forward thinking, and it was opened in 1864 to care for people in the South End with less means who are suffering from things like tuberculosis, typhoid, and other infectious diseases. And we're serving the same mission today. So 70% over 70% identify as people of color, over 70% have public insurance, so Medicaid or Medicare. So it's really the same, we've held on to that mission the whole way through. Next slide, please. And why are we investing in sustainability and environmental justice at BMC? Well, our CEO, Alistair Bell, has said that our aspirational vision as a mission for the hospital is to make Boston the healthiest urban population in the world. And as I'm sure people on the board members on the BERDO board are aware, this patient population is truly a frontline community most affected by climate change. Before anyone else in the city, living in urban heat islands, more vulnerable in power outages, all of these things. So it feels incumbent upon incumbent upon us as an organization to invest in this work, specifically in climate justice, to care for those patients and for all patients. For the entire Boston community, but it's really our patient population that drives this. And so clean power prescription, which I'll tell you more about, is part of that vision, making a more just transition happen as we transition from fossil fuels to green energy. And many of our patients don't have access to that. So we wanted to create a pathway for them to participate. And then also we do things like the rooftop farms that we have 2 of them. I just wanted to mention that, which serve our patients. We grow food and then distribute it at our preventive food pantries. So I refer my own patients regularly to these food pantries. They get this hyper-local produce. They also can go up there and learn about how we grow the food, and there's trainings. And then there's also a teaching kitchen to learn more about how to cook things. That's another story. But so more on clean power prescription. If you'll go to the next slide, please. Social determinants of health are a major focus at Boston Medical Center, also a term that probably many are familiar with. This is a version of the form that everyone receives when they come see a primary care doctor like myself, pediatrician, emergency department. Many people get screened, and it's all of these issues that are part of health and affecting health outcomes, but not directly medically related. So food insecurity, housing instability, and one of them is utility insecurity, so not being able to afford your utility bills. And I was seeing that a lot in my own clinic, which is where the idea came from. Okay, we know that solar power is less expensive and cleaner than fossil fuel-based power, so why aren't our patients benefiting from that? We have this model already of a community solar array, so we could host one at the hospital, and then we ended up being able to do it not as a subscription the way that traditional community solar works, but as an actual donation to patients. And part of that is actually because of the Inflation Reduction Act, which we are still getting for our solar array, the original one, and actually we still plan to get for the current one that we are planning, because we're going to start it before the end of the year, before the phase down of the Inflation Reduction Act, ITC, the investment tax credits. Anyway, so we wanted to create a program based on these social determinants of health. So if you'll go to the next slide, that's where the idea for clean power prescription came from. And I briefly want to make clear the connection between energy and health, and why we are focused on this. So many of our patients, we prescribe medical devices to. I have my own patients. I've seen people go into serious debt on their utility bills because of devices, actually, particularly hospital beds. When someone's having a more serious illness and needs one at home, they can really eat up a lot of energy. And home oxygen machines, there's studies that show certain ones of these machines can cost between $300 and $500 extra per year to run one of these. And again, I don't want to say everything that you guys already know, but Massachusetts is the third most expensive energy market in the country, so it's really a common problem here. And then as it gets hotter with climate change, we have air conditioning in the summer that people need, but often can't. People tell me they cannot afford to run their air conditioners, even if they have them. Again, refrigerators, we need those for healthy, fresh food. If your utilities are shut off, you lose everything in your fridge. And then we also know from actually economic studies that people will regularly substitute, like they will trade off between essential costs like food and medicine and utilities, because it's considered such a basic expense that people will pay that sometimes over, even they might even be hungry, but paying their utility bills. So it's we really feel like it's a crucial social determinant of health. So next slide. So a quick overview of the program. This photograph is from the Globe when we first started. This is the solar array, and that's me standing on the left with Bob Biggio, he's our Senior Vice President of Sustainability, and then Alistair Bell, our CEO, who's inspecting the panel. And this is on top of 960 Massachusetts Avenue, just a building that's south of the kind of central campus, a little bit south of Mass and Cass, like 2 blocks south. And it's a 356 kilowatt solar array, and it's in front of the meter design, so it sends the power out to the grid, and then Eversource basically tracks how much we produce, and then we gather patients' Eversource account numbers, and we can easily transfer that credit over to their account. And that's basically how community solar works, but instead of charging them, we just give them a credit. And I wanted to just note, because it was related to some of the questions that the board had asked, that this array was constructed by a certified minority business enterprise. Okay, next slide, please. And then just a little bit more on the details. So we provide $600 in credits. Originally, we thought that would be over 12 months, but then the weather affected things and also the price per kilowatt hour went down. And so now it's taking a bit longer to reach that $600 mark. But we do keep people in the program until they hit that, and longer if there's not someone waiting for a spot, actually. And then people can get into the program if they report that they're having difficulty affording their utility payments and they have Eversource. I actually should have put on here, one thing that I left off is they actually have to be part of a care management program because we're focusing this on the people that have chronic diseases and are having sort of worse outcomes, ending up in the emergency room or inpatient care more often. And so that's a way that we ensure that it gets to the right people. They also have to have mass health. So I actually, my apologies, didn't put all of the eligibility criteria on this slide, but I can certainly follow up and send those if that's of interest. And this current solar array that we have in the photo can support 80 households at a time at that amount of credit. Okay, next slide. So I wanted to provide just a little bit more information that tried to tailor it to the board's questions, but we can certainly do more in the Q&A. And I sent some information earlier today that were more specific answers. Thank you, Diana. Some more specific answers for your questions. But we estimate that this new planned facility that we are expecting to break ground on before the end of the year will avert over 800,000 kilograms of CO2 equivalents over the 30-year lifespan of that array. The board asked about BERDO requirements for BMC. It doesn't affect our BERDO requirements because that power is not being used by us. It's being used by our patients who we're directing the credits to. So it essentially is offsetting residential emissions in the city of Boston, which is, yeah. So for what that's worth, I'm happy to talk more about that. And in terms of engaging tenants, it's a slightly different model, I think, than maybe the typical application here, but we are engaging our patients in the sense that we're surveying them to understand what their experience of the program is like. And because we're sort of, so we launched in October of 2023, but then there was delays in being able to interconnect the solar. And so the first patients didn't actually get credits until September of 2024. So we're just having the first patients come to the end of their 1 year period in the program. And then also, as I mentioned, it's taking a little bit longer to get to that $600 mark. So we are going to resurvey as they're exiting the program, but we haven't done that yet because they're still accruing that amount. But we will have more information on what their experience of the program was like. So we're doing quantitative surveys and also open-ended questions, more qualitative research as well. And then I already mentioned that we're planning to still, despite this administration, we've gotten guidance that we still can get 50% of our costs covered by the Inflation Reduction Act if we break ground before December 31st, which we plan to do. So
Thank you.
Happy to answer questions. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to take it back just to make sure that that we have time. So and again, pointing board members to the responses Dr. Goldman went over a lot of them just now, but responses that were sent to the board. If people have other questions, please indicate with a raised hand or unmute yourself. Board Member Lattimore.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Goldman, for the information and the presentation. I did want to understand, you said that eligibility is the care management program. Someone has been, what is that?
Yeah, sorry. So it's funny, I actually deleted a slide on this to make it shorter, and as I was talking, I realized that was a mistake. But so care management is a model where we have community health workers paired with nurses that work with patients that have higher needs. So in order to get into these programs, They have to have Mass Health, so that is a good way for us to be sure that it's getting a lower income population. Um, they have to have a chronic disease that could be anything from a mental health issue, substance use disorder, diabetes, heart failure, any of those kind of more typical chronic illnesses. And then they also have to be showing that that those diseases are not managed well, like they're ending up in the emergency room more frequently than would be expected, or admitted to the hospital more frequently than expected. And the reason that we have done it this way, it's actually we still consider this a pilot phase. It's fairly small. We do hope to scale it up over time. But the reason we wanted to do it in the pilot phase is because we had community health workers that kind of help us do that enrollment, make sure we have all the paperwork, and they have the bandwidth more than the average. Like my clinic has a patient navigator, it's just a single person for thousands of patients. And they often, like, things get lost and the referral doesn't go through. So we wanted to both kind of direct the program at the highest needs patients, and it does include pediatric patients, I should say, and elderly, but make sure it's getting the highest needs patients, also who are low income, and also had a community health worker who had the bandwidth to actually ensure that they got enrolled and got those credits.
Thank you. And my last question is the prescription program, the one that's transferring the credits to People's Electric account, is it only for this solar array, and is there a potential for it to be expanded, or is it, I
Yeah.
understand it's a pilot, but is it only applicable to this particular solar array? And does the BMC have future solar array installation plans?
Yes, thank you for the question. So this fund, the funds that we've applied for would go towards this next one, which we are planning to do, which we're planning to break ground on as before December. So yeah, so this would be a second one that would almost double our capacity, just 5 shy of doubling the capacity. Um, but we do have plans to build more over time. BMC is going through some difficult financial times right now, mostly because of the Steward healthcare crisis. Although the governor signed a relief package this morning, so that could help things. But so we do, a lot of it is fundraising, and I do a lot of that to expand. But the other neat model that we have the ability to actually transfer credits from anyone who owns solar in the Commonwealth. So anywhere in the state, we can actually, if they want to donate some of their credits to our patients, we can accept that pretty easily. They just have to have Eversource. So I've talked to a number of anchor institutions in the city who have expressed some interest in participating in this way, and some businesses. It hasn't happened yet, but actually Brian Sweat said that he was interested in trying to make more connections there. And so I have high hopes that we'll be able to scale this model over time, both through our own campus solar arrays, but also through solar arrays that are disseminated throughout the Commonwealth.
Thank you. Thank you. No more questions.
Thank you.
And I think we have time for one question from Board Member Ellis.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for answering the second question that I had. So I appreciate Board Member Lattimore for asking about the expansion. I just want to make sure that I'm wrapping my head around this completely. Seeing that it isn't, the solar panels would be installed on BMC's campus, so to speak. They are not going to be connected directly to the residents' meters, so to speak. So this is inherently a form of an offset program that you are asking funding for.
It's basically it's like we're acting as a little power plant, and we get paid for the power that we produce. It gets used locally, right? By, those electrons flow into whatever buildings happen to be using it. So it's connecting to that local grid. But the credits, the payment that we're getting from Eversource for supplying power to the grid is getting transferred to patients. So it's essentially that they're sort of benefiting from that solar power, if that makes sense.
Got it. No, that makes perfect sense. So essentially, you're asking for money to set up this new plant, and then the credits would then be sent to the residents. That's layman's term.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not, I want to say, because some people, like businesses, use offsets, and those are those renewable energy certificates. It's not like that at all. It's like the actual power. And actually, we don't keep those those RECs either. It goes to Eversource. So
thank you. That's all. That's useful.
Wait, I did see one additional question, and so I'm going to ask staff, do we have time for one more question from board member affairs?
Yes, we still technically have 4 minutes.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I clearly, my math is off. Great. All right,
Okay.
board member affairs.
Thank you. I'm sorry if I missed this, but I was just curious, because you are using your own rooftop to produce solar for other owners or for other residents, does this impact, or how might this impact BMC's own BERDO compliance pathway? That kind of, loss of
Yeah,
that. Mhm.
it doesn't do anything for our BERDO requirements. Like we have to do that in other ways. And we are doing that in many ways. We're working on energy efficiency all the time, and we have done, I don't need to go into all the projects that we've done to increase our energy efficiency, but it's been a huge investment that we've made. But no, this would be covering residential usage. 100% of the power would go to our patients. And so it doesn't do anything for us for BERDO, but we still think it's the right thing to do.
Okay, yeah, I was just making sure that sorry, child interference. Just making sure that your BERDO plans weren't relying on this
not at all
production. Okay, thank you. All right, back to you, Chair.
All right, so we do have time for one more question if we have one. Okay, great. This was really thorough. Thank you so much, and thank you for the presentation. And we will move on to our next presentation from Urban Edge House Corporation.
Yes, awesome. Good evening, everyone. My name is Joanna. I am a project manager at Urban Edge Housing Corporation. I'll be sharing more with you guys about the Theriac Apartments Deep Energy Retrofit Project. I'm also joined today by Bill Bronner. Bill is our Director of Real Estate. Bill is going to join me afterwards for the Q&A session. Next slide, please. For those who are not aware, Urban Edge Housing Corporation is a nonprofit community development corporation. We were founded in 1974, and we currently serve 4 neighborhoods: Jamaica Plain, Roxbury, Dorchester, and Mattapan. Our mission is to strengthen communities and families. We do this by building and preserving affordable housing, providing resident support services, and providing opportunities for residents to build wealth through homeownership education. If you guys are interested in learning more about Urban Edge, I invite you guys to review this slide after today's meeting and contact someone on our team. Next slide, please. So Theriac Apartments Deep Energy Retrofit Project, or the DER project at Theriac, is what we call it in-house. Consists of 36 apartments across 5 buildings in Roxbury and Dorchester. You can see on the map to the right that Theriac Apartments itself consists of 16 buildings. The DER project, the buildings in the DER project are actually outlined here in red. They are located, if you're not familiar with the neighborhood, they're located the northeast corner, near the northeast corner of Franklin Park, which is bordered by Seaver Street to the north, and then Blue Hill Ave to the east. 4 of the buildings are brick buildings that were built in the 1920s, and then one of the buildings is a wood frame building that was built in the 1990s, which is our most recently built building. All of the apartments of the DER project are 100% affordable, and they will remain so. They are affordable in perpetuity through a deed restriction, and they will remain affordable at 50% of the area median income. Next slide, please. So you can see here a couple of pictures of the buildings. So over on the right, we have 47 Nazing Street and 266 Seaver Street, which is located north of Franklin Park. And then over on the left, we have 32 Ellington Street and 36 Ellington Street, which are identical buildings. And then we've got 4749 Glenway Street, which is that newer building I mentioned that was built in the 1990s. Those buildings are about a block or so away from each other, and they're located east of Franklin Park. Next slide. So this is our project team. We lead a team where BWA is our architect. We have BEC, or Building Evolution Corporation, as our sustainability consultant. We have Resident Energy as our solar consultant, and we have Tierney Development Services as our owner's project manager. Next slide. So basically, collectively, we have this vision, and our vision is to deliver healthier and more efficient buildings that residents will still be proud to call home, that are aesthetically pleasing, and that maintain housing stability. The problem is that because of the age of the buildings have older, inefficient systems that emit considerable emissions and that don't meet city and state standards. And so our solution is really to electrify the building systems to reduce the reliance on carbon, reduce energy consumption, and improve building air quality. It presents a great opportunity for us because the building systems are currently what the capital needs assessment identified as being the most important things to identify as a priority at this time. So EEIF funding is needed to help us achieve the decarbonization plan. But not only that, this is actually our first DER project at Urban Edge. And so, as you guys can see, those buildings are similar across the Commonwealth. The type of buildings are similar across the Commonwealth. So not only will this set the foundation for how we will carry out future retrofits, because a lot of our buildings are also brick style buildings beyond theoretic apartments, it will also allow us to provide opportunities for other folks to learn how to carry out energy retrofit. Next slide, please. So this is how we approached our scope of work. We pulled our team together and we basically said, if we are going to be going through a rehab, can we use this as an opportunity to the greatest extent possible to decarbonize these assets? And so we asked ourselves this question. We said, what are the energy conservation measures that we can implement that will get us to hit a 50% or more EUI reduction from the baseline? And so our energy consultant, they did some energy modeling. We had some conversations. We did more analysis. And this is what we came up with. So we plan to do building envelope improvements. So for the brick buildings, we plan to do an exterior insulation finish system or an EFIS system. So it'll be repointing and repairing of the brick and then installing a cladding system for the insulation. For the wood frame building, we do plan to replace the exterior vinyl siding and then install a continuous insulation system. And then for all the buildings, we are planning for interior wall insulation. So it'll be a liquid applied AVB. We also are planning for new double hung triple glazed windows and weatherization and basement wall insulation. The other piece of the puzzle, as you guys have heard in previous presentations, for these buildings, it'll be a new mechanical and HVAC system. Currently, it's gas-fired boilers, and so we'll be transitioning to all-electric heat pump water heaters. And then paired with that, a new VRF or a variable refrigerant flow system. This basically, as you guys are aware, translates into central cooling for the tenants. And then currently, the recovery or the ventilation system is not up to code. And so there is no fresh air intake right now. And so for all the buildings, we do plan to install a new ERV system. The last piece of the puzzle for us is renewable energy production. So we do plan to install rooftop solar, and that'll help offset some of the cost. The estimated total annual output for all 5 buildings is about 80,000 kilowatts. Next slide, please. So as you can see, even without solar, we see a 57% EUI reduction and subsequently a 76% emissions reduction for all buildings if we are to implement all these ECMs for all 5 buildings. The chart on the left shows the EUI current versus the post-decarbonization EUI projections. You can see for all buildings, we are able to achieve a 50% or more reduction. And subsequently, the chart on the right shows what the CO2 emissions would be post-decarbonization. So the blue bar there is our current, and then the red or orange bar there is the projected after decarbonization. You can see huge increases, at least with 266 Seaver and the rest of the buildings. Next slide, please. So as Urban Edge is actually, our board is, a large percentage of our board are people of color. So Diversity and inclusion is important to us, and also resident engagement is important to us as well. The Thierock Tenants Association is 49% owner of Thierock Apartments, and we have a really good relationship with them. So we do provide them with monthly updates. This consists of monthly updates through both in-person meetings and then also monthly reports about the rehab. And then our current engagement has also consisted of resident surveys, quarterly resident meetings where we provide updates to the general residents about the rehab. And then we also engage in occasional coffee hours with residents too. Because we do have a dedicated in-house community engagement team, we do plan to do one-on-one conversations and group conversations where we really educate residents about what it means to live in a decarbonized building, particularly for that VRF component, for the transition from not having central AC to having central AC. So we have a really good relationship with the TCA board. They have been supportive of this process thus far. They are aware of the decarbonization plans. And then we also plan to use lessons learned from similar projects. Next slide, please. And then lastly, as I mentioned, diversity and inclusion in hiring is important to us. And so the chart here shows our project performance in MBE and WBE participation for projects that we've completed over the last 10 years. For this project, our goal is to achieve 30% MBE participation and 10% WBE participation. You can see that for all of our projects, we've exceeded 30% in the past. And for almost all of our projects, we've achieved more than 10% for WBE participation. So our approach will be similar for the Thierock DER project, which will consist of making sure that the goals are clearly defined and outlined in the general contractor bid package, and then also making sure that the GC is producing monthly hiring reports that are going to be reviewed and discussed during OAC meetings. So next slide, please. In conclusion, thank you guys for your support. And thank you guys for listening to the presentation. We're very excited about the opportunity to present to you all. Bill and I are available for whatever questions that you all have.
Thank you very much. That was really helpful. Are there questions from any of the board members? Please indicate with a raised hand or unmute yourself. All right. I'm seeing no questions, an indication of a thorough presentation, always. Thank you so very much for this. It was really helpful, and we'll move on to what is our last presentation, which is from the Boys and Girls Club of Dorchester. So I will hand it over to the Boys and Girls Club.
Thank you. And my name is Mike Joyce. I'm the Senior Vice President of Operations at Boys and Girls Clubs of Dorchester. Thank you to the board for allowing us to present our project, and found the presentations very interesting, very learning filled for me anyhow. So our project is an energy efficiency carbon reduction HVAC renovation project at our Mar Clubhouse facility, which is the one pictured there in front of us. If you could pop to the next slide, please. Like Urban Edge, we were founded in 1974, so we have some similarities there with that one building that you saw there, and we've expanded since to 3 clubhouses, and we're working on a 4th site. But our mission is to welcome and connect young people with families to opportunities that embrace diversity, nurture growth, and inspire success. The club serves about 4,000 youth per year. We offer over 200 programs for youth ages 2 months to 18 years of age, and we do that on a $5 membership fee. I've been here since 1979, and that membership fee hasn't changed since I got here. So that's one thing we're pretty proud of. Next slide, please. So just a visual location of the project and where it's taking place. The Mock Clubhouse is located at 35 Deer Street, which sits between Dorchester Ave and Pleasant Street in Dorchester, and it is 50 years old. And now I am going to hand it over to my colleague, Pete Nash, who's going to cover the next slide.
Thanks, Mike. Next slide, please. Great. So as Mike said, we serve young people of all abilities and backgrounds, and our membership fee is just $5 a year. In addition to that, obviously, we're very deeply connected to the community that we serve. Among our staff members, 52% of them live in Dorchester, 60% of them identify as BIPOC, and 42% are, in fact, club alumni. They were youth that participated in our programs as kids. Next slide, please. Our project goal really has two goals. One, to reduce carbon emissions, and two, for us to create a positive example for the young people that we serve, that it's really important to protect the environment. We engaged with Power Options in December of 2023 to create a decarbonization roadmap plan. And part of that plan, by 2030, we want to reduce our carbon emissions. Hence why we're applying to you today to replace two of our aging 30-year-old HVAC units on top of our gymnasium. Then in addition to 2030, we have ambitious goals by 2050 to be net zero. Next slide, please. With regard to the project budget, our project budget has remained the same as in our proposal. Our overall budget is just over 261K, of which we're requesting funds of just over 136K, with the remaining 125K coming from the Massachusetts rebates. Next slide, please, and back over to you, Mike.
All right, thanks, Pete. As you can see, we're tag teaming here. So our scope of work, we're replacing the two rooftop units that sit over our gymnasium with two 25-ton Aeon heat pump RTUs. Like our existing units, which are currently 30 years old, we've seen an extended life with them because of what we consider to be a solid maintenance contract on our mechanicals. And, we hope to do the same here. We believe this project here will allow us to increase our energy efficiency, avoid any disruptions in programming for our members. And, we're excited that this system will basically eliminate most of the gas that has gone into the existing units. These will only fire up when it gets to a 30-degree temperature, as recommended by the manufacturer. Next slide, please. So this project is, for us, it's really just replacing the existing outdated HVAC units that are on the roof. The project on our side will be overseen by myself and DeJuan Sawyer, who's our facilities director and has been with the club for 20 years. He's on the call, but he's my silent partner. He's letting me do all the talking. And we are going to be working with World Energy Services in assistance with DVM Industries. They've been working with us for several years on a couple of different energy efficiency projects. So we're excited to join them again in this potential renovation. Next slide, please. All right, so I jumped a little bit, but yeah, we've done work with World Energy on some variable frequency drive additions to pumps in the building, and there was an LED retrofit of two facilities of ours several years back as well. World Energy, by the way, is not a registered minority and woman-owned business, but in conversation, it sounds like they just need to do that because they do qualify. So more to come with that. I'm actually going to hand it over to Jack Dudek from World Energy, and he's going to explain info on the next slide.
Sure. Thank you, Mike. And thank you, Berto, for your endurance as we're the last presentation. We've been excited for this. And so, yes, as he said, I'm the sustainability specialist from World Energy that partnered with them on this project and for previous projects in the past. Little bit quickly about World Energy. We're one of the leading energy efficiency and electrification firms in the region. We've completed thousands of projects for customers in Boston and throughout the whole Northeast. through the past 15 years. And this project here is actually a critical step on their path to net zero by 2050, as outlined by another one of our direct partners, Power Options. Power Options is a nonprofit. They're located in Boston. They're actually the largest energy procurement firm in Boston as well. And so we work hand in hand with them in order to bring customers these decarbonization and electrification upgrades in a way where they're able to be supported by utility rebates and also support them through grant processes like this. So a little bit about the carbon emissions reductions as it pertains to BERDO here. These are the numbers that we submitted for at the beginning of the grant process. And so essentially what it is replacing their 2 existing units with 2 AEON heat pump units, which will be dual fuel, meaning that they will be functioning as electric heat pumps up to 30 degrees and below, which is when natural gas will kick on for heating during those temperatures and times. These figures that we have here, I actually had some fun myself this weekend on the BERDO emissions calculator on your website, playing around, looking up their building here. I have it on my left, you can't see, but I will describe it quickly for you. Is for their location at 35 Deer Street. It actually appears that these emissions ratings are actually very conservative compared to what we've calculated using your own tools here. And as I said, it's a critical path for them to reach compliance. Right now, they're a bit above the limit that they would have to be compliant with by 2030. And this project would bring them below their emissions limit as outlined by BERDO between 2030 and 2034. So this would directly offset what they would need in order to become compliant in the recent coming future here. Next slide. Yeah, so a little bit about the other half of what's supporting this project. So the 2 total funding sources proposed for this project would be this BERDO grant, if we're graciously accepted, and then the Mass Save commercial heat pump rebate. One quick update that came from the rebate just within the last several weeks is that Mass Save actually indicated that they're going to reduce the rebate by 20% for any projects submitted after October 27th. And which aren't completed by the end of the year. So our goal is to have this submitted. We can submit that non-binding heat pump rebate application, submit the rebate application, get that in their hands so we make sure that we remain at the same budget, and then to have this project certainly completed, installed, and commissioned, fully operational by the end of 2025. And then, yeah, any potential risks or yes, supply chain is something that we're always looking at right now because like I know I remember as one of your volunteers was saying, the economy the way it is right now, it's actually a lucky thing that honestly the budget is the same as we submitted it for in the beginning of the grant process. But it would not be so in the future. One direct reason being, like I said before, the heat pump rebates will be changing by 20%. So that means their $125,000 that they're receiving would become $100,000. So this is a window of opportunity for them to get the latest and greatest electrification heat pump technology at that full rebate amount right now. And then another potential risk too is, as Mike and Pete were saying, these are 30-year-old units. They're at end of life. Their own, third-party HVAC service technicians have been telling them to make plans for this. So this is a perfect time for them to get new units that would make them also compliant with BERDO and avoid any potential disastrous disruptions if one of these units failed. So this is critical for the organization, and this would also bring them into BERDO compliance. So we saw it as a great application and fit for this grant. And I think that wraps up the slide here. If there's not anything else that Mike or anyone else from the team wants to say, then we're ready for questions.
Yeah, I think maybe just one thing on that previous slide, it does mention completing in winter of 2026, but that was actually a typo. We're following Jack's timeline there. And in case anybody is curious about that last piece there, we did have an environmental site assessment done on a previous project, and there was a report of mold at one point of the roof, but it is not in the section where we're doing this work.
Thank you. So I'm going to open it up to board members for questions. I do just, before I call on board member Stovall, I just one question from me, which is understanding that weather is a risk factor. If for some reason your application was in October and you were ready to go, but the start was delayed because of an unforeseen natural bear block in terms of a weather pattern, would that compromise your ability to use those funds? Or if you're sort of making best efforts, are you still protected and being able to execute on the project?
That's a good question, Jessica. I would say that we would still be able to get it because we do work directly with the utilities, with National Grid, with Eversource, with Mass Save, and the individuals that we go back and forth to get these approvals from. And there is a certain amount of reasonability and flexibility in certain situations like that arise. And the labor for this project will not be long at all. So even if there was a very long spell of harsh weather in the winter, we would expect that we could certainly get the work done by the end of this year, regardless of any extreme events like that, because it won't be a long construction timeline or process at all. It will mostly all get done in 1 or 2 days.
Okay. And because you're a single source company, that are you in the process of applying for a W or an MBE certification? Did I hear that right?
So we're not in the process of doing it, to my knowledge, but one of our owners is a minority, and we are willing, of course, to contract firms that are women minority business entities as needed for any of this contracting work. 100%, no problem.
And
we are not one
so
ourselves.
okay, but and you assume I'm assuming it's a single subcontractor that performs the whole job.
Correct.
Okay. And so your current plan is just to bid it out, and am I hearing in your answer you're looking for direction from the board around whether you need to make best efforts around representation, or do you have a plan right now about?
Oh, we do have a plan. We have
Okay.
an installer. It's DVM Industries. I don't believe that they are minority business enterprise. For whatever it's worth, most of them are Ukrainians, but I don't. But if it's needed that we'd have to use a WMBE, then we absolutely will. But we have a plan. We have a set installer that we work with day in, day out on on projects throughout the year. I mean, they do hundreds of projects for us, so we do have a set plan that we could be ready to run with right now. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm going to give it to board member Stovall for the next question.
Mike, you said something about the roof. That was your last statement about, was it mold, or what were you saying? The last statement you made on the roof.
Right. So we had an assessment done of the building when we were doing a different part of the roof, which we were able to get some of it done, but not all of it. And there was a finding of some mold in a section of the roof that's what I'd say is more of the core of the roof in the hatch area, probably affected from, the hatch being opened and closed and catching some rain and snow and so forth. And we're looking to remediate that piece when we do the rest of our roof. We've had the pool side done, and at some point we're hoping to do the core and the gym side as well.
Well, it's nowhere near where the units are going to be placed, and if it is, have you had a engineer look at it to make sure the roof's structurally sound and is able to support the weight of the units going in?
Correct. We've worked with Thompson and Lickner And they've looked at it for us and support what we're doing.
Okay, so you won't have any problems. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Can you clarify, or do you need any electrical upgrades in order to execute on this project?
There will be none needed. Nope, no electrical upgrade needed.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Is there any additional questions from the board? Great. Seeing none, thank you. Thank you for pulling up the rear on our long night of presentations. It was very thorough and helpful, and so I think we can wrap up on the presentation section of our meeting, and I'll hand it over to staff to talk about next.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And thank you to all of our presenters today. I know it was a what is it? It's a marathon, not a sprint. So good job, everyone. So I'll just briefly review next steps, just kind of reiterating what I mentioned at the top of the meeting. So for each board member, we're going to reach out to you directly via email. So expect an email either from me or Ziggy, or just ask for your recommended awards. Please note if you recommend awarding anything different than what was requested. I know we actually have a to-do following this meeting to request any updated budgets for any budgets that have changed since their application has been submitted. So we'll try to get that to you as soon as possible. And once we hear back from all of the board members, Ziggy and I will coalesce all of those responses and present sort of a recommended based on all the responses we've received at the following hearing on October 14th, which is the Tuesday, because that Monday is a holiday, and so the city hall will be closed, and I'm assuming folks may have the day off. So yep, that's it for next steps, and I think we can. And I'm really impressed. Good job, everyone, for being very efficient with the time. We actually ended a little bit early. Oh,
Board Member Lattimore?
Yes, thank you, Diana, for that summary. I would request that when we get the updated budgets, of course, you include all the various bodies of work that they're doing that include the non-BERDO funded as well as BERDO funded. I would appreciate being able to see the portions of the BERDO funded work being put into kind of a sources and uses budget, if possible. That's just a request that I'm making. And then I would like to know if we can get the presentations sent to us as well. I think that would be helpful for me as well to have the various presentations that were done tonight in hand.
yeah. Yes, I think, yeah, the budget spreadsheet kind of has, I want to make sure I understand. The budget spreadsheet has like a line item by sources.
Right.
You're like,
Yes, but for example, as I recall, Austin Brighton has a huge amount of DER, deep energy retrofit work, some of which is almost done or pretty much done. They've included that. And the BERDO piece, however, which is not funded by BERDO, but they've included that as when they did their presentation tonight, which was really helpful to have that. But then there's the piece that is funding, that BERDO is funding outside of that broader deep energy retrofit. It's useful for me to understand. It would be useful to me if folks could segregate out the body of work. For example, if you're doing deep energy retrofit and it's a $7 million budget for all of it, and you include but BERDO's only funding the solar piece of it. I don't know if, to be able to segregate out the BERDO piece of it, that item and the sources and uses related to that item and how BERDO fills in. That's my request. It would be helpful to kind of compare apples to apples.
okay.
I'm not averse to having the whole budget. I just would like to also see the piece that they're looking for BERDO. Sometimes it may be difficult for them to tease that out, but if that is possible, for me, it would be helpful.
Yeah, I think that should be easy. There's like two columns, and I think that should be easy to highlight. And then the second request was to share the slides. Is that right?
The presentation, yes, thank you. That's
Yes.
the only request. Thank you. I'm done.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. Whatever updated budget information that we get, it'll be good to have as we make our final recommendations. Any other comments?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? I will second it. So there's a motion to adjourn on the table. If you are in favor, say aye, or please raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, I don't think we have any nays. All right, the ayes have it. We are adjourning at 6:24 p.m. Thank you everyone for an action-packed meeting with a lot of efficiency and good information. And we will meet again on the 14th.
Have a good night.
Thank you,
Bye.
Good night,
everyone.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a great night.